Yo, what's going on, guys? We're just playing some NHL 17 here in the background, but we're going to be discussing the NHL and the Olympics. Just today it was announced that there would be no NHL teams in the 2018 Olympic. NHL players, I should say. There's obviously never teams. But I know this has brought up a lot of frustration for some people, and I'm going to be the one to go out there and say I think this is great. It's a good idea. Hear me out. First of all, let's do some background here. First, this is a 17-day break in the middle of February that players would get off to go play for, their respective countries. Second of all, this was actually thought out before the decision was made. People would just like to blame Batman right away, but they were polls taken. I think they said 53% of Canadians and 73% of Americans were up for not having the NHL players in the Olympics. And I'm going to agree with them. First of all, they said that the Olympics were no longer going to fund these players going like they used to pay for them to go over and play for these teams. Now that'd be an expense out of the NHL's pocket. And you could be like, oh, let's the NHL being grimy with their money. But you think about it, the NHL is not a popular sport. Let's be honest here. At least in the United States, it is not very popular compared to other sports. It doesn't get a lot of TV time. We're on a secondary sports network. We don't even make it on national TV for 95% of games. The only ones that make it on TV are, Bruins, Penguins on a Sunday afternoon or something like that, or Capitals, So that doesn't help. If you want to try to grow the sport, I think that's money they need to save and spend somewhere else. I mean, you can make the argument that they're not doing a good job growing the sport. I'll completely say they don't. Whole nother video talking about it. I think they do a bad job of trying to grow the sport for, marketing reasons and other things. But as far as the Olympics are concerned, that's money out of their pocket. And a lot of the teams are opposing being a part of the Olympics. And you can understand why. First of all, it's right smack dab in the middle of the season. That is, it's right there. It just cuts your season off. As a casual NHL fan, that kind of turns you off, it gets you out of the NHL mood. You just lost the NHL for 2 weeks. I mean, yeah, you can say you watch some of the Olympic games and stuff, but just to have a majority of players not playing hockey for 17 days, that's a little annoying to me. I know it's other people think differently about it. I understand completely. You're thinking you're representing your country here, and you want to represent them, and the countries in Europe don't get to watch NHL players all the time and stuff like that, and it's popular in Europe. First of all, if it's really popular in Europe, it'd be on TV there, you would think, right? If it's really popular, that airs some sort of NHL games. But I don't see how the Olympics, and you want to see the Olympics grow the sport? Ask yourself this real quick. How many times have you watched the Olympics and watched swimming, watched rowing, watched, what's that one thing they go down in the sleds on? Watch that and been like, oh, that is cool. I'm going to start watching that sport. Nah. Normally you sit there and watch, you're like, oh, okay, I want to see my country win. I want to see the United States win. I want to see Canada win. I want to see Finland win. And you don't watch that sport ever again besides the Olympics. And I think that's the way you look at it with the NHL. I think there's money that can be spent elsewhere. And I don't think, like I said, I think that hurts, the fact that they go to the Olympics for 2 weeks. That doesn't help either, because the NHL brought up a great point. The NFL, the MLB, off-season right there. That's two big sports crowds that aren't drawing viewers. Instead of the NHL, that's viewers that can be going to the NHL instead. And here's something people don't realize. Baseball, football's not in the Olympics, first of all. Baseball's intermittently in the Olympics. And what's baseball do? They have the season goes right through the summer. They don't do an Olympics for baseball. What do they do instead? The World Baseball Classic. What does hockey do? The World Cup of Hockey. It's no different. They have a sport or an event that gets all the big countries in prior to the season, just like baseball does. I think that's like your replacement of the Olympics, because you're getting every country involved. So I know it's not the grand stage of the Olympics, but it serves the same purpose to get, you're fighting for your country for the World Cup of Hockey or whatever. I think that's the same case. You got to look at it right there. They have something for that. You don't need the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey. And like I said, I think that's a great replacement. If they do a good job of advertising and stuff like that, that is great for all these players and stuff. You don't need to put that break right in the middle of the season. And here's something a lot of people, I think's my biggest concern too. These guys get injured and your team's screwed. From a casual fan standpoint, from a fan of a team that's tanking that year, that you have nothing to lose, you're like, whatever. But in the 2014 Olympics, Zetterberg, John Tavares, Alexander Barkov all got season-ending injuries in the Olympics. That's big blows to teams that are playoff contenders at the time. Argue the best player on the Islanders, injured. Zetterberg, one of the best players on the Detroit, injured. Barkov, up-and-coming star, injured. That's a big deal to go into that every year. Imagine going to the World Cup this year and your favorite team, you're a Penguins fan, Crosby goes and plays and he gets hurt. Or Malkin, who's prone to getting hurt, gets hurt in the Olympics in February. And he misses a month or two, and that costs you, the number 1, number 2 seed, or maybe even the playoffs, because you lost your best player right in the thick of the season, and you missed the playoffs by 3 or 4 points, and your best player is injured in the Olympics. That's gonna have an impact. You can't say that guy couldn't have brought you to the playoffs that year. I know a lot of you guys are going to be completely against this. You're like, oh, definitely should have had the Olympics, and it's opinion based. It's completely opinion based. And here's something that they don't look at too: is some teams send more players than others. That's taxing on players. 17 more days of worth of hockey. I don't even know how many they play in the Olympics. There's a lot of games in that 17 days. That's taxing on players' bodies. They talk about guys wanting days off and stuff, and they're forced to play more games, and it ain't really a break because you're flying across the country and getting these games in and stuff and then coming back, compared to some teams where these guys are getting a 17-day break, getting time to recuperate, rejuvenate, and everything else. And then you hear about all the players complaining about, oh, I don't want this compressed schedule and stuff, and that's what has to happen when the World Cup comes around. You have to smash all these games together because you have a 17-day break. The injury part, that's where it gets me. The injury and the fact that there is the World Cup of hockey, two things that I think counteract this problem. You have a chance to see all these teams play for their countries, and you don't want your team missing the Stanley Cup. The NHL is a sport that needs to grow still, and you're injuring your best players at the Olympics isn't helping people draw attention to your sport. If you're losing, your best players out and you feel like your season's over and you quit watching the games, whatever. Like I said, I think there's ways they can spend, it's a completely different video, where they can spend money to grow the sport, and they definitely need to do a better job of that. You can't argue the fact of that. I think, it's opinion based though on if you think the Olympics is needed. I'm sure I've seen Twitter. A lot of you guys think it should be in the Olympics, but I'm going to take the different route against it. After you heard everything I said here, hopefully it cleans the daylight on maybe you see why the way the NHL's thinking on this as well. And like I said, they didn't really take a complete biased deal on this. They went through surveys, they asked players, they asked teams. And it comes to the thing, your teams want to represent your country, or your players want to represent your country, you understand that, but you have to understand the tax that it has on these players, the injuries, the interruption in the middle of the season. With all that put together, I'd like to hear if you guys still think it's up, if you guys still think you should have the Olympics, or if it's actually a good idea to have it taken out right in the middle of the season. As for this video, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.